What Final Five voting does is make sure that no one gets hired until November voters turn out, and that no one gets hired without a majority of November voters, and that no one gets hired without real competition to be hired.
The last thing we need is more polarization. The last thing we need is more partisanship. We can have differences of opinions, right? But the system itself is broken. That's what everyone agrees on. The system is broken.
So right now, we always know by early September what 85 to 90% of Congress, who they're going to be. With Final Five elections, if they were everywhere, you wouldn't know who was going to be in the Congress until after November every time.
It would change the political incentive structure rather dramatically. Will this actually happen? I don't know. But I do think there ought to be more energy behind that. My problem is I try to wrestle with making that interesting, making that compelling.
We are on track to be on the ballot in 4 states with Final Four elections or Final Five elections this fall, November. And the citizens of all those states will get to decide if this is how they would like to hire the people who represent them.
You go out to communities and host public events, and what you find is, an opposition forms that isn't really willing to have the real debate about, the pros and cons, the trade-offs. Instead, what you deal with is, energized arguments from the opposition with a lot of money behind them that are just based in misinformation.
Here's why I love Final Five voting. Because it is a political innovation that is designed not to necessarily change who wins elections, but to change what the winners do when they're doing their jobs in Washington, D.C. or in the state capitol, which is to say, is their primary focus and motivation, or at least is it a very high priority for them to work on solving real problems for real people in a sustainable way?
And maybe, the most discouraging ones of all are, the ones that try to turn this into a partisan issue, and it's clearly not. Those that try to claim that, the reforms we're proposing are somehow too complicated for the ordinary voter when, really they're about the basic idea is about as complicated as counting to 4.
So right now, the success metric is, do we pass these initiatives? But over time, the success metric changes, which is, are they getting better results from governance in that state? And that's the only thing that's going to matter.
If the people speak with a loud voice, I don't think we're going to encounter problems in keeping the initiative on the books. But we do have plans for what may happen if the legislature does try to sabotage the initiative, and that could either be in the courts primarily or in the legislative process.
So right now we have to really push. If these states start to get great results, then we'll see the benefits of competition, because states are always in competition with each other, right? They're competing for investment, they're competing for jobs, they're competing for tourism, they're competing for their own advancement and economic prosperity, et cetera, as a state. And once it becomes clear that this is a competitive advantage being governed this way, then other states will want to do it. There will be a pull, not a push.